Statistically speaking, there's basically a 100% chance you've bitten your nails at least once in your life. Maybe you did it as a kid, or maybe you still do it today. Maybe you're doing it right now while watching this video. Our poor test subject, Gustave, is the kind of guy who constantly bites his nails, mostly because he's stressed out, which makes sense when you see what I put him through. But hey, Gustave, do you actually know what could happen if you keep gnawing at your cuticles like that, like you're starving or something?
No.
Yeah, me neither, to be honest, but I can imagine it might lead to some pretty nasty consequences, which works out great for us that Gustave bites his nails, so we get to use him for today's little experiment. As usual, we're gonna take things step by step. So, will Gustave just end up with a mild infection? Will he need to get something amputated? Is he at risk of contracting something more serious like, I don't know, cancer or something? There's no time to waste. Let's hand it over to our brave little guinea pig and see just how far this can go. Biting your nails until they bleed? What's it like? Alright, here we go. Gustave has fallen back into his nasty little habit of biting his nails, just like about a third of the population, even if it's difficult to get exact numbers. To start with, let's do a quick anatomy lesson. It's important to know that fingernails grow pretty fast, around 3 millimeters per month on average, while toenails grow about half as fast at 1.5 millimeters per month. Since Gustave only bites his nails in moderation and doesn't nibble away more than 3 millimeters a month, his nails actually stay pretty decent looking. Basically, he just bites the part of the nail that grows past the fingertip. Nothing crazy. At this point, there aren't any negative consequences. Given how little he bites, we can't really say that nail biting is such a bad habit. Like with a lot of things in life, moderation is key, because it's the dose that makes the poison. And in small amounts, nail biting can actually be seen as just a grooming reflex, if you want to call it that. You could even compare it to washing your hands, flossing, or cleaning your ears. They're totally normal things, but they can turn into a problem when they become obsessive or compulsive. Take hand washing, for example. It can turn into a full-blown obsession, and some people end up feeling the need to wash their hands constantly and an unreasonable number of times a day. First of all, it wastes a ton of clean water, but more importantly, it can really mess up your skin. You end up with raw, cracked hands like a grandpa at just 25 years old. When it comes to nails, some psychology manuals actually say it's the same kind of obsession as the hand washing. It's the most basic of grooming habits observed in primates other than humans, like the chimpanzee, for example. But when it starts turning into a compulsion, that's when the negative effects start showing up. Right, Gustave? I mean, I'm only saying that because I see it's getting harder and harder for him to stop. Alright, Gustave's little habit is starting to get out of hand. It's not constant yet, but most of the time, he just can't stop himself. Most people assume that nail biting is caused by stress, but that's actually not always true, not by a long shot. For example, autophagy, that's the fancy name for nail biting, can be triggered by too much stimulation or not enough. Like when you're stuck in a long line and it's dragging on forever, yeah, that kind of boredom. Put it that way, it might sound like Gustave is chewing on his nails all day long, but really it only happens in what we'd call extreme situations. Think about it. If I give you a task that was way too hard, maybe even impossible, I bet you'd probably end up feeling frustrated or overwhelmed. On the flip side, if your job is super boring, your brain might start spiraling with random thoughts and end up feeling just as anxious and helpless. To cope with that anxiety, about a third of you will start biting your nails even without thinking about it. Let me pause here for a quick side note. If your brain is just the right amount of engaged, not too much, not too little, you'll feel calm and focused. That sweet spot is something we call flow, and trust me, it's a state of mind a lot of people strive to reach. When you're in flow, your problems fade away. You're doing, not overthinking. No time for nail biting. That's why Gustave never feels the urge to bite his nails when he's doing DIY projects or reading a good book. But outside of those moments, he falls back into the habit. Just look at the sorry state of his nails. I can tell he's a little embarrassed to show his hands, but honestly, aside from the slight social shame, he's not suffering too much yet. If I were him though, I'd start worrying about my teeth. Because yes, biting your nails can wear down your enamel and even chip your teeth over time. In some cases, it can even become painful as the repeated biting gradually wears down the tooth. Constant nail chewing can mess with your teeth alignment and in some cases can lead to a bad bite, what dentists call a malocclusion. That's just a fancy way of saying your teeth are so misaligned that chewing properly becomes a challenge. That can lead to a bunch of other issues like jaw pain and even gum infections from all the nail biting. So yeah, just from a dental perspective alone, there are already plenty of good reasons to stop biting your nails. The problem is, Gustave's done it for so long, he doesn't even realize he's doing it anymore. It's becoming automatic. Gustav's nail biting habit has officially gone to the next level, and it's really starting to take a toll on him. His nails are in bad shape, raw skin, short nails, and he bites them so aggressively he ends up bleeding. Yeah, sorry. I know it's not a pretty sight. You might think the solution is to just let the nails grow back, but once a nail's been this damaged, regrowth doesn't always go so smoothly. See, the nail bed, aka the skin under the nail, acts as a guide for how the nail grows back, and usually to help it grow back straight. But if it's too messed up from repeated biting, the nail can start growing in any which way. That's how you end up with ingrown nails. You know when the nail starts growing into the skin, like it's stabbing your finger from the inside? It's painful. And in some cases, you even need surgery to fix it. The more Gustav mangles his fingers, the higher the risk of ingrown nails becomes. So yeah, probably a good idea to quit this bad habit while he still can. One trick is to start putting on a bitter tasting nail polish. And look, it actually suits him pretty well. Problem is, Gustav's already gotten used to the taste of the nail polish, so we're back to square one. At this point, the best solution might be to find a replacement habit, something that keeps his hands busy in a healthier way. Gustav, I wasn't exactly thinking of that as a replacement habit. Sure, it's true, smoking keeps your hands busy, and let's face it, it's more socially accepted than nail biting in public. After all, at parties or at the office, people gather for smoke breaks, not for nail biting sessions. True. But taking up smoking is not a good habit at all, alright? Still, I'm not shocked by his new habit. Studies actually do show a link between nail biting and smoking. Some studies even suggest that nail biters tend to struggle a bit more with social skills than the average person. Sorry, buddy. That said, don't worry, these are just general trends. There's no one-size-fits-all profile for a nail biter. It's not just about social anxiety or nerves. Still though, Gustav, I gotta be honest, your replacement habit, it's not the best. And before you think about starting to pull your hair out or scratching your skin in order to replace your cigarette habit, just know those are habits with the same kind of harmful cycle. The better option is to do something to keep your hands busy with something harmless, like a stress ball, a fidget toy, or even better, explore the deeper reasons for your anxiety. Maybe even talk to a therapist. No. Because if nothing changes, Gustav, your nail biting could spiral into something even more serious. But hey, you can't say we didn't warn you. Now Gustav has some fingers with no nails at all. I'll spare you the detailed photos, but it's really not a pretty sight. But that's what can happen in really extreme cases where the nail matrix is damaged. The matrix is the white area at the base of the nail, and that's where new nail growth starts from. Besides, nail biting isn't the only way to lose a nail. Sometimes a heavy blow can cause a bruise under the nail, which can lead to it lifting from the nail bed and falling off. And in really unfortunate cases where the matrix is destroyed, the nail can't grow back at all. If you ever crush your nail like this, you'll need to see a doctor. They'll puncture it with a needle or a heated paper clip. It sounds intimidating, but it doesn't hurt at all. In fact, the opposite is true. It actually relieves the pain and reduces the risk of your nail falling off. But for our little Gustav, unfortunately, it is already too late. His nails are in bad shape and his teeth are just as messed up. But the worst is yet to come. Could this lead to something like cancer or something even worse? Not at all, although there have been some bizarre cases, like one of an English woman who was said to allegedly have developed cancer in her finger from biting her nails too much. In reality, this young woman bit her thumbnail so much that a black spot appeared underneath. The thing is, she was too embarrassed to show anyone and thought it was her fault that the nail turned black and grew abnormally, so she hid it for 4 years. Eventually, she decided to consult a doctor and found out she had severe skin cancer on her thumb, which forced her to have the thumb amputated. But rest assured, nail biting wasn't the cause of the cancer, according to the medical professionals. However, it is true that her bad habit delayed the diagnosis of her cancer. So if you notice any dark spots under your nail, get it checked out sooner rather than later, so you don't end up like this English woman. Anyway, while nail biting doesn't cause cancer, it can lead to infections. Any wound can get infected, and this can cause paronychia when the finger becomes red, swollen, and inflamed. This kind of thing hurts a lot. In less severe cases, it can be treated with some antiseptic baths. More rarely, the infection can spread, as it did for a certain Luke Hanneman. A week after the paronychia appeared, he started shaking, sweating, and running a fever. His finger swelled up and pulsed painfully. Now, his case is very, very rare, but he ended up in the ER because he developed sepsis, which means that the infection passed into his bloodstream and spread to his whole body. Don't worry, he didn't die, but it was a close close call. That's why you've got to deal with infections before they land you with sepsis. Even a small tooth abscess isn't something to take lightly. But did Gustave have the same luck as Luke Hanneman? Sadly, no. Because without proper care, Gustave's sepsis took his life a few days ago. R.I.P. Gustave. I'll say it again for those in the back, but the vast majority of nail biters won't develop infections, let alone die from them. We just had Gustave die for the sake of entertainment, let's say. In any case, if you're struggling with this hygiene habit that's turning into self-mutilation, good luck with quitting and don't give up. I've just broken the habit before you, so you can too.